Victoria Tran, what is your favorite game?
My favorite game is Undertale. Yeah, so I think my first games were, it was all the Flash games, like a mini clip and Addicting Games and E-Bombs World. Wait, E-Bombs World, did that even have games? I don't think so. Newgrounds. Yeah, I never grew up with a console because my parents thought it was evil and we weren't allowed to ever have one. So instead, my brother and I played a lot of PC games. Tibia, Ragnarok. I played a lot of free games, basically, if I could. And I think some of my earliest memories come from all those like different Flash games that were available just because they were easy, and I would go into like the public library and just play them for like 30 minutes. And yeah, I don't know, there's so much nostalgia for that. And I think it like started getting like real like into gaming when I finally discovered the MMOs. Like I mentioned, Tibia and Ragnarok were my main ones. I think I had like a side server of Ragnarok because I didn't pay for it. So it was whatever. My brother was older than me, so he found the free stuff basically. And then at one point we were gifted a Game Boy Color, and that's when we started playing like Pokemon and Zelda, and yeah, it's just a lot of good times with free PC gaming, honestly.
You mentioned how you first started out playing with Flash games on Newgrounds and stuff like that there and Miniclip. Like, what specific games can you recall you were playing at that time?
Oh my gosh, I don't remember the name specifically, but I remember there was like a little interactive buddy that you had, and like the more you like poked him or like threw a bomb at him, the more money you would get to buy more equipment to like attack him more.
That somehow rings a bell to me, and I don't know why.
Right? It's like, it was like gray, and it was just like big. The little buddy was like made out of like 5 circles, or 6 circles, whatever. 5 circles. I don't remember what it's called, and now it's gonna bother me. Someone will know, and it's fine. And then there was that like the Arrow Stickman game. Then there was. Sorry, I'm like going down memory lane now. There's like the Bloons Tower Defense games that I remember. Oh my goodness, there's so many, and I know. Oh, there's all the Neopets games.
Oh, naturally.
Naturally, that was a whole thing. Gosh, there's just so it's like one of those things where you don't remember them until you see them, and you just get that visceral reaction of like, oh, my childhood.
There was Alien Hominoid as well before it made the jump.
Yes. Oh, and then there was all the dress up games that existed. Yes. I love those. Those
For some reason, I remember that as well.
Right? No, it was amazing. I miss those.
Fuck, that was the golden age, wasn't it?
It was. Just like, I think the beauty of Flash games was that because they were so small, like you really just had to focus on one game mechanic and make it really, really fun. And there was like nothing else, like nothing crazy that you could do with it because, it was just a Flash game. So it always focused on one thing, and it was so fun. Okay, I'm gushing now. Maybe my favorite game is Flash games now.
That's going to change the entire concept of this episode now. And And then you mentioned as well the Game Boy Color, like you were obviously Pokemon and Zelda. Like, was there any others that sort of you were playing at that time on the Game Boy Color?
Yeah, I guess I should specify it was technically the Game Boy Advance. Yes, the first time.
The Goat handheld.
Yeah, see, the first time we got a Game Boy Color from a relative, my mom gave it away. I told you we were not allowed to have consoles.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so when we first got a Game Boy Color, I think from it was like an old Game Boy Color. It wasn't a new one. It was just a hand-me-down from a cousin, and she was like, "Nope, you're not allowed to have this because it'll take you away from your studies." And we're like, but somehow, I don't know how we were allowed to have a Game Boy Advance. Again, not sure where the logic went with that. But anyways, very happy to have it. Yeah, so we played a bunch of the Zelda games. God, I'm trying to remember. Oh, we had was there Pokemon Pinball? Was that on the Game Boy Advance? I don't remember.
Maybe it does ring a bell towards the GBA anyway.
Yeah, I remember we had a bunch of games, but I wasn't interested in them unless basically it was Zelda and Pokemon. There was a Star Wars game. There was honestly there's so many other games that I just didn't care about because I was obsessed. I was obsessed with Zelda and Pokemon. I refused to play anything else. I was like, I'm loyal to these ones only.
I do not care about anything else. I do not care about Mario or Mario Kart. Mario Kart for GBA was fucking brilliant.
I didn't play it. I didn't.
I know.
I wasn't into it.
I'm just lamenting the fact that you missed out on one of the best racing games of all time with that.
I'm sorry.
That was such a good game. Such a good game.
I know. I mean, look, I've missed out on a lot of games due to my lack of console.
What about after that? Like, what was that like coming up, especially with, from what I can tell, such a restrictive family?
I guess the way I branched out, and I mentioned this before, was the MMOs. Because it felt like freedom. Like, because my parents restricted all the console usage, being able, and they didn't know I was playing with people online, right? But being able to interact with people online and go on these adventures and explore these what I thought were huge worlds, and they were, at the time, these massive worlds, and just gain have skill trees, and it was so intricate, and there were different job classes. It felt so big to me. So I spent after Flash games, I spent most of my life playing MMOs, I think, which was terrible and great. I think honestly it kind of helped me do what I do today. And yeah, I think I still have not really ever gotten into consoles other than handheld devices. So I have a Nintendo Switch and I had a 3DS, but I still have never owned an Xbox or a PlayStation. I know, and it's bad, but I don't know, because I guess because I've never grown up with it. It's I still don't get that same hype, I think, that everyone else does. But I really should get those things at some point in my life.
That's especially sort of really fascinating here, especially because as we're recording this, not only is this the week of the next gen launches, we are literally recording this the day PlayStation 5 comes out in the US and all the other countries that aren't in Europe and the UK. That's really fascinating to hear that.
I know, everyone's super hyped on my timeline and I'm so happy for them. But again, because I think they're part of the excitement is having a nostalgia attached to something. And since I don't have that, I would get it in the future, but I'm not the day it launches, I need this type of person.
Were you like that when you got your Switch anyway? Because at least then you had that sort of connection already with Zelda and Pokemon?
Yeah, I still didn't get the Switch on launch. I'm not a launch day person. I don't know why. I think because I didn't grow up with a lot of money, it's I never got things the day they dropped anyway. I would normally have to wait for them to become a hand-me-down from a cousin or some other relative, or we just waited until they were really old and on sale, and that's when I got them. So it's a weird thing where I just never had the opportunity to have something on launch day, so now I don't really have that same pull to have things the minute they drop.
That's somewhat fair. I can understand that.
The way I got into the industry was very, as we can probably tell now from my very strict upbringing, I never thought games was a thing that was a legitimate thing I could get into. That wasn't an option on the table for me. So I went to university, and I have a degree in sociology with a double minor in communications and the social studies of medicine, because I was going to go into healthcare, PR. That was the original plan. I graduated, and I had like a mini crisis post-grad, being like, this is not what I want to do. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't know what I want to do with my life. Everyone else seems to know. And I kind of had this like whole breakdown where I was like, I'm just going to apply for anything that seems interesting to me that is like even tangentially like a passion of mine. And games was one of them. So I was like, might as well try games. And that's when I sort of found out like that the term community management existed. I honestly didn't know this was a thing. This isn't really a thing they teach you in healthcare. So I started applying for a bunch of jobs. I got a job in a outsourcing company that does game services, so like QA, customer support. They also did community management. I got a role in community management, and I got to work a bit on a game, and that was really fun. The company, something else. But the game was super fun, and I loved it. And then I was like, oh, maybe I can do this. And that's when I saw, my friend saw that KitFox was hiring a part-time community manager on Twitter. And I was like, you know what? Nothing to lose. I might as well apply and try it out. And then, yeah. So then I got that job. I guess I should preface this with the fact that during school or university, in order to pay bills, I worked a bunch of like marketing jobs. So I had a lot of experience there in terms of just student-wise, like knowing marketing terms and kind of being able to figure my way out around that. So that launched into KitFox. I worked with KitFox for almost 4 years, and very recently I announced I am the new community director for Innersloth, who make Among Us and the Henry Stickmin collection.
Victoria was not the imposter.
I was not the imposter.
Well, what was the reaction like within your family then when they found out that you were basically working within games or wanting to work within games?
Confusion and a lot of worry. I think, and my mom admitted to me, I think 2 years, maybe a year ago actually, she admitted to me she thought it was just a phase. She literally thought I was going through like some phase where it was like, oh yeah, she'll work in games, she'll have fun, and she'll go back into the real world and get a real job. It's like, no, this is going to be my entire life now. I love it too much to leave. But now they're like generally supportive. They see I'm not like struggling to survive. They can see I'm happy. And they've definitely like calmed down a lot since I've graduated, because they're like, okay, she's not going to get into like drugs and stuff. We're good. We can leave them alone for now. So they're very confused, but they're supportive generally.
So basically, they've now accepted that this is not a quarter-life crisis.
Yes. I mean, honestly, aren't we all going through a crisis at this rate? It's fine.
That's true. That's very much true. Thank you for pointing that out. Let's talk of your favorite game then, which is Undertale. And I have Undertale. I do own a copy of Undertale on PlayStation 4. And I've still not played it. And I am such a bad human because I know people who love this game to death. And I've still not played it.
It's okay. It's okay. There's so many games. It's impossible to play all of everyone's favorites.
That's true. That's actually really reassuring.
Look, I have that mindset because everyone, when they like hear I haven't played like any of those console games that are like their childhood classics, I'm like, look, I don't have the time.
Gotta play them all. Gotta play them all. Gotta play them all.
Oh, gosh, yes.
So, well, let's properly discuss Undertale then, I guess. What sort of attracted you to it? Like, what sort of made you want to play it, basically?
Honestly, the first time I was exposed to it was from a streamer. I was just watching a streamer play it, and I had never heard of Undertale, and I was watching it, and I was like, okay, this looks like, cool, like Earthboundy type thing. And then as the streamer started playing it more and more, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. So yeah, I kind of discovered it from a streamer, and I was motivated to play it from that, but also I've basically watched several other people play it. Like, I keep watching, like, I don't get tired of watching people play this game.
You mentioned that sort of Earthbound Mother aspect to it. I wanted to, like, was that another game that you were playing a lot on the Game Boy as well?
I actually played it on PC via an emulator.
Ah, fair enough.
Yeah.
How did you find that?
Earthbound?
Yeah.
And Mother?
Yeah.
Oh, I love them. My best friend is super into the game and was the one who introduced me to it, and she and I, like, the story to it is just, I think that's part of like why I love Undertale so much. I mean, I think that's what Undertale started off as, right? I think some mod or something to Earth Mother or Earth, anyway, I don't remember which one.
We don't, in fairness, like, we all don't, so like, you can call it whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I think like the characters are so charming. Like, just the little quotes. Like, for some reason, I still remember the like phrase "fuzzy pickles" every time someone takes a photo. Yeah, it's charming. It's sweet. It made me like tear up. Like, yeah, it's really good.
Obviously, like, Mother and games like Moon were big inspirations to it. Like, talk to me a little bit about how you felt like you saw those inspirations between Undertale and like Earthbound and Mother and even Moon as well. Like, have you played Moon?
I haven't played Moon actually.
No,
Maybe
fair
I should
enough.
look into that.
But it's admittedly very similar apparently in terms of basically being if I remember correctly, because I know someone did an article on this fairly recently. It's very similar in terms of being well, I guess Mother is technically an RPG anyway. Like, it's very it's very similar in that regard anyway.
Yeah. No, I do find, I think, I mean, their art style kind of feels reminiscent of, like, the two games where they mesh is just a lot of things. And I think, I'll get probably more into this later, but, like, one of the things that I love so much about Undertale is the story and how the characters feel so charming and full of life. And I think both games have that, of just, like, the monsters kind of, they're weird, but they also have their own sort of charm to it. I guess I'm not describing it super well. But I'm trying to, like, just the small quotable phrases that you can grab from each game and that leave an impression on you. I find that, honestly, for me, like, I find narrative really hard to follow in games. Not as in, like, hard to understand or whatever, but, like, it doesn't grab me that much. Like, the writing has to be really good for me to actually be interested and not just, like, mash A to, like, skip through it to get to the action part, honestly. And both of these games have been ones that I've loved, like, reading myself, but also seeing people react to it and watch it. And I think because of the nature of my job with games is that I find so much joy in watching people play games and and seeing how they react to things. And I think both games have that sort of beauty in their writing to them, where it feels very human, where it feels very relatable, and it doesn't. It literally feels like you are the character, let's say. And then I also just thought of it. I'm like, oh, both of the main characters have striped shirts. That's not really it. I mean, look, it's a similarity. And then obviously, like, there's a combat system, which Undertale, like, totally goes wonky with, but they're very similar. There's so many similarities that I actually haven't really thought of until you asked this question.
You mentioned as well, like, you sort of find joy in watching people play games. Like, can you elaborate on what that sort of feeling is like?
Yeah. Why do I find joy? I think it feels like the closest I can get to going on an adventure with them. Like obviously, like, yeah, we could go on a hike together, which is a whole other thing. But, like, a legitimate, like, I love seeing them be surprised, or being surprised with them, depends, like, you know, if I've played the game or not, or I know what's happening. Being able to see people, like, react to a game's premise or a mechanic or something fun that the game has done, kind of like, I think it feels like connecting with them. And I think one of the things about the internet and being online and stuff is that we often mistake the fact that we can, like, there's many opportunities to connect, right? Like, I could message all, I don't know, 500 of my Facebook friends and technically connect with them, but that's not the same as actually feeling really connected with them and feeling like we're experiencing a moment, or like really like feeling like friends or whatever, right? And when you have games that make you emotionally react to something, or that make you laugh together, it feels like you're connecting with them, and it feels like, oh, we're on the same page, and we both understand that whatever is happening right now is ridiculous, or right now everything that's happening is shocking and sad, and yeah, I really enjoy those moments of connection. So I think watching, like, streamers or watching a friend play a game and just chatting with them and seeing their expressions is part of the fun, for sure.
Well, in the specific case of Undertale, then, like, what is it that brings you that joy in watching people play Undertale, then?
Undertale is a game that is built on subverting a lot of expectations, and that's one of my, like, favorite things about honestly, a lot of forms of media. Like, anything that kind of subverts expectations is really fun and exciting for me. And Undertale does that. So I think because Undertale has so many shocking moments that kind of lead you on into thinking, like, oh, okay, like, I understand how this is going to go. Especially, like, you know, if they, at the time when they didn't know that Undertale was that big, or, like, had these many plot twists, or, like, whatever, it was a legitimate surprise and delight when they discovered, like, oh, like, I don't have to stay in this, like, box that it says like my attack should go. Like, I could go other places to, like, dodge it or whatever, or the way the monsters in the game would interact with you, and then, I don't know, completely, like, be really snarky or really cute or really fun, or the fact that you realized that you were a terrible person if you killed the monsters. And just, like, the whole storyline. It was just, it's a thing that surprised a lot of people, and that's kind of the joy of it. And even if you know the surprises that are coming, I think they have so much life to them, and it feels like they exist in a world outside of you, that it kind of makes you enjoy it, even when you know what's happening, and the way they break the fourth wall sometimes, and you're like, maybe this does exist? I guess they technically exist outside of me, and it makes you, like, question everything. Oh, I could go into a whole thing about it.
Like, the fact that you said, like, a bit, whenever you're if you end up killing too many of the monsters and the enemies in the game, it basically makes you feel like a bad person. It's that sort of moral dilemma. It's very powerful, especially coming from a game. Cause like the two examples that make me think of, not two necessarily, because one does it very differently. But like when you mention that example there now, it makes me think back to Shadow of the Colossus and how one by one you're killing each of these monsters who are doing basically otherwise nothing to you, and they only fight with you because you are attacking them. And then towards the end of the game, you sort of as it goes on and on and on, you more or less feel like that meme, that gif going about, like basically saying, "Are we the baddies?"
The baddies. It's true though. And like I think the worst part is it's like, so if, I mean, spoilers.
Good for it.
I mean, we've been spoiling this. I think like one of the best parts is that like, yeah, you're dropped into this world and you're the one choosing to attack everyone. And the thing is like at the end, if you're continuing to go on like a whole like I'm gonna kill everything in this world, the main characters in the beginning of like, because, you know, there's different routes you can play, right? You can not kill anyone, you can kill everyone, you can kind of kill everyone. Anyways, but at the end, like, a lot of the characters who you know from, like, all your interactions with them and who you know their, like, preferences and their, like, dreams and their goals, they're like, oh, no, like, you can still be a good person. Like, you still don't have to do this. Like, I believe in you. Like, even when you're battling them, they like refuse to give up on you as being a good person. They're like, you don't have to do this. It's okay. And I'm like, no. My heart. Sorry. I'm a terrible person.
It's the fact that the games sort of provide those morals to you that just sort of question everything. I think that sort of makes why these sorts of games are very powerful.
Yes, for sure. Like, I was watching my friend stream it for the first time, and he had never played it, and then we played another game together, and it was just, I think it was like RoboQuest or something, and we're like, are we just killing everything
for the sake of killing?
Because I know, for the sake of killing, like, what are we doing? So bad.
I think the other game that I was sort of referencing earlier that sort of questions everything, and actually no, I don't know if it necessarily questions everything, but it sort of flips it on its head, and that it sort of gives you, what's the term I'd be looking for here? It sort of gives you like an empathy for the monsters in the game. The game I was actually thinking of there was Rookie, that recently came out on Switch and PC, because like in that game, the monsters aren't necessarily your enemies. They're basically, you know, they're there to share empathy with. Like, I remember playing a demo of it at EGX last year, and how there was this troll underneath the bridge, and usually in any other game you would fight it, but here you sort of develop an empathetic bond with the troll, basically. So I guess really it's, how do I sort of turn this into a question? How does games like Undertale like sort of deal with things like empathy and, well, I guess we've sort of been talking about that for the past 5 months or so, but like how does sort of, like just how does it sort of deal with that empathy and turning it into something that's basically a good takeaway message, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think what it does, like, how does it create empathy into a takeaway message, or like?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where they make the characters actually relatable. Like, the things that make you connect with them aren't that they have like, I guess, huge, lofty goals. It's just like, I want to watch anime. Like, I really like spaghetti. It's just like, it's one of those things where it's small little things that you can understand, like, honestly, like, oh, like, I can connect with that. Maybe not like, oh, I also love spaghetti as much as Papyrus does, but that the things that kind of make up someone's personality aren't necessarily always the huge things, but like the little things, and you see them interacting with like their siblings. You see them like having a crush on someone. You see them like acting really nervous, and it's just like these small little quirks to them that kind of makes them feel alive, even though you don't necessarily know their entire backstory. You don't need to know it. You just need to know kind of the little quirks to them and the little things that make up a personality. And from that, I think you feel connected with them. It's not anything that's like polarizing, let's say. And then from that, I think it kind of leads you towards feeling bad about them, or like, you know, being like, oh, this person's my favorite, or this, like, I don't really like this person, or whatever. But regardless of that, it's like when you get to like the final scenes, you kind of realize, oh, during this entire time we've been building a relationship because we've just had these little moments of like, I know this about you and I know this about you. I know you're really sad, and when you're really sad you listen to music and we go into a weird space world. It's just, I think what it does really well is that, again, it uses those moments of connection, and like the beauty of like small simple moments into creating these characters that you can empathize with and that you kind of want to protect, or that you want to get to know more by the time you get into like the final battle scene, let's say, with them. And also it uses the combat system to create these moments too, right? I haven't talked about the battle system at all, but it utilizes that as also like part of the narrative of the game.
Let's talk about that then. Like combat system. Like I have it here in my list of things to talk about, but like how does sort of that combat system sort of play into the narrative then? Like,
yeah, so you have the kind of basic like it's turn based, so you know, you have the fight, I think run, fight, act, item, mercy. Yes, that's what it was. And it's one of those things where like fighting could actually, like, you would actually be fighting them and, you know, damaging them. But acting is the thing where it's like, oh, how, like, talk to them, give them a hug, and you have to figure out which combination of things in the acting form, not in the fighting form, in the acting form, would actually calm them down and let them calm down enough that you could just basically be like, all right, mercy, or just let them go, or whatever. And I think, like, part of that, it's like, oh, like, that's, you have to read the text. Like, it makes you read the text. It's like, what is this monster going through?
You literally have to read between the lines, basically.
Yes, basically. And then it does, like, you know, fun things with the actual combat. So in order to damage you, like, their attacks have to hit, like, the little heart in the box. And they use creative ways, like you can actually, like, for some of the attacks, that you just go completely out of the box, like I've mentioned, so it kind of subverts expectations there. And it always does, like, really silly, weird things. It changes the shape of the box. It, like, does different things with it so that it feels almost like a mini game of, like, dodging attack, like a mini bullet hell that you have to do with the different attacks. And then that being said, it's like, maybe they completely change up the battle system. Like, for one of the quotation mark battles with Papyrus, it becomes a date. And now you have to, like, try to date Papyrus with the same battle system. And yeah, so, like, basically I think what it does is that it forces you to read, but also it uses this as an opportunity for you to figure out kind of what problems or what issues this monster is going through and how you can help them out with that. And I think that's really cute.
You go back to what you mentioned earlier, like, that's a massive subversion of what you would traditionally find in, say, an RPG, basically, because obviously in an RPG you're just basically, you know, fighting a baddie or fighting an enemy just for the sake of, you know, defeating them and progressing, whereas here you do have that option, obviously, but, like, you're using that battle system to, you know, subvert, basically, and just basically use it as a way to sort of provide empathy and connection with the monsters, characters in the game, and obviously using it to sort of date Papyrus. Like it goes back to what you said earlier about subversion, like it ties into that very well.
Yeah, I was extremely delighted to see that happen in the game. And I almost bought the hoodie for it, but then it was sold out. And now I can't have it.
Sad face. So you mentioned you mentioned it in part there as well. But like, Undertale is basically an RPG at its heart. Obviously, like we sort of mentioned that a lot, but like you mentioned as well, like there are other elements of other genres in there, like bullet hell shooters. Like, how do you sort of find that sort of mashup as well? Like yeah, just how did you personally find that?
I found it really fun. I mean, I love bullet hells, honestly. So there's that part, but I guess I get really, how do I put this nicely? I like variety in my gameplay, let's say. So the fact that it changes up the battle system, it doesn't just make it like completely like turn-based. It, like, I feel like I'm doing something when it does the bullet hell, and because every monster has its own attack pattern or attack style, it changes that up a lot too. I don't know, I find it really exciting, and I like it when there's little things to do in games, but that's kind of just my playstyle for sure.
When you say that, like, can you elaborate on that? Just like you say you love the little things, like what exactly is it about them that you would like?
Yeah, I think it keeps things spicy. It keeps things spicy in the bedroom. But basically, it's like because
welcome to late night, my favorite game.
Hey! Because it's like I am the type of gamer where like once I get used to like knowing how to do something, I'll just button mash my way through it, right? If I was fighting, like if the fight was normal, I just be like fight, do the strongest attack, okay, fight. I like barely use items. I'm one of those people where like I refuse to use potions. I just hoard them because I'm like, what if I need them later? And then I never use them. But I'll like stick to like the basic combat moves I know, and I'm like, cool. And I think what because Undertale does a lot of subversion, or because it feels like every monster has its own different attack pattern, it's like I can't get comfortable, let's say, just doing what I normally do. I mean, at one point, like, there's the very common enemies where you're like, okay, I get what's happening here, but the fact is, it's like, it doesn't have so many of those moments that I get bored, let's say, or I become complacent with how the combat system works. So, yeah.
You mentioned as well, just to go back slightly, that you love playing bullet hell games. Like, what specific bullet hell games do you like playing?
Is it bad that I can't, like, remember the names of them? It's probably pretty bad. Because there's, like, because in Flash games, like, the bullet hells are very popular, right? Yeah. And then, like, you have the arcade cabinets that basically felt like bullet hells, where we're, like, the fighter jets or whatever, and you're just shooting things. Just Shapes and Beats was really fun. I really like that.
I remember that. That's ringing a bell, that.
Yeah. There's definitely more that I played that I really enjoyed. I remember, I don't know. I feel like there's not, like, many big bullet hell games that I know of. I don't play them super often, but when I get the opportunity to, I'm like, ooh, how exciting. There's too many games.
There's too many games as it is. Like, not just bullet hells. There's just too many games.
Oh, for sure. Now it bothers me that I can't remember any bullet hell games. Oh my gosh. Oh, Cuphead was really fun.
How did I fucking forget about Cuphead?
Right? I was like, there was one that was, like, very popular and I loved it. And it was Cuphead.
I'm so ashamed of myself right now.
Me too. It's okay. We both forgot Cuphead. But I love that. And then Enter the Gungeon was really fun too, of course.
And that. Oh, fuck.
Yes.
I
know. We're terrible.
Like, if this episode is a record of nothing else, it's the fact that we know very little about bullet hell games, even though one of us has played a dozen of them. Well,
it's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't talk about it.
This has been cut from the set.
We're just exposing ourselves at this point.
We are, aren't we? We're showing ourselves up as just sort of fake gamers at this point. Like, I'm just
yes, this is fake gamer confirmation.
Yeah, more or less. So, yeah, let's talk of the story then, because like we sort of been skirting around it. Like you mentioned how it's full of charm, and like the characters are full of such charm as well. But like, go into a bit more detail then about how you found the story then.
Yeah, so there's different paths of which the story can take, but basically you're dropped into a monster world as a child, and you have to find your way out. And along the way, you befriend a lot of different characters, and each character feels so alive. Just so... Oh, God, yeah. I think it has the exact sort of humor that I love so much. Like, you'll find a character who's like, hi, I really, really want to go to college. Please buy my items so I can go to college. I'm like, oh, I feel you. I'll buy everything. And then there's like these two sets of like this set of skeleton brothers basically who are, I don't know, they just have the best relationship. And then there's this hero, and there's who like has who's definitely going to date this dinosaur who loves anime. This all sounds very random if you have like no idea what the game is
that
about.
Also feels very Toby Fox though.
Yes, it does, and that's what I love about it. It's just it's the thing where it's like all these characters have such different personalities, and it sounds so random when you just like talk about it out of context, but within the game it works so well and it makes so much sense. And I think that it's like it doesn't feel like it leans onto stereotypes necessarily of characters, which I find like a lot of games do that. It's like, oh, like, you know, you have like a jock character, and you'll have the funny character, and then you'll have this character. Everyone kind of has multifaceted personalities, and I think the fact that you can tell they have relationships outside of you just talking to them feels really interesting and fun. And like, for example, the skeleton brothers are like my favorite characters, and one of them is Papyrus, is very silly. He's the one you go on a date with. He's the one who like loves spaghetti and just has these like lofty goals. And his more down-to-earth brother, and you'll see like Papyrus will try to set like a puzzle trap for you, and he's like, oh, you'll never figure it out, and they're the easiest puzzles in the world because he's just not very good at them. And it's really cute. This isn't even like the main narrative of the story, right? It's just, I think the strength of it is that the characters you meet along the way are so full of life that it makes the entire story feel so full and vivid. But then, of course, as you like progress, you figure out like, oh, the things you're doing, let's say, like EXP doesn't mean what you think it means, and you are the driving factor of like whether or not, like, you're basically the evil character if you decide to kill everyone, and that's kind of like playing the role of the villain. Well, if you were to go the other route, then you would just be playing like this like lost kid who's like just trying to get along with everybody and get out of this monster world, but also there's a cute mother that wants to take care of you. Oh yeah, it's great. And then there's also weird experiments at the end, but I won't get into that.
It's fascinating that you mentioned that about the story. Like, do you think that there's humanity in it in a way?
Yes, there is. It is one of the most human games about monsters. with monsters. These monsters are basically some of the most human characters I've seen in games.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you Undertale has a very similar taste of humor that you like. Like, what other game? Not necessarily games. Like, but what other things with similar humor do you sort of like that fall into that humor that Undertale has?
Who other games that have that humor?
Not necessarily other games, although if you could find them, obviously.
Oh god, I'm sure there are. This is going to be that thing where, like, with the same bullet hell thing, where it's like, there's definitely a game I'm missing, or, like, some piece of media that I'm missing, that I can't think of right now. Gosh, I'm trying to... I don't know. What are games that people find funny? I'm trying to think.
God, even I'm struggling now.
Right? Like, what games are funny?
I am going through what I'll call from here on out the COVID fart brain, where we
fart brain,
where we've just completely forgotten about everything now.
What? Yeah, I cannot remember any game. Oh my, there's definitely humor. I'm trying to Google them. Funny games. Nope, that doesn't work.
We're really exposing ourselves here now.
I know. Oh my god. How can I not? I mean, I guess it's more charm. I mean, the kind of like cute humor from Untitled Goose Game was really nice, but that wasn't like necessarily actually comedic, I suppose.
But it could be based on character choice and agency.
It's true, but it's still not the same. That like.
Okay, fair enough. That's
kind
true.
Of comedy game. Oh, comedy. What? No, not that. Sorry, like I'm judging these. I'm like, what? Grand Theft Auto 5 is in.
What?
I know. Sometimes the Steam tags are interesting.
Like, it has slight elements of dark humor and comedy, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a comedic game.
Right? Oh my goodness. How can I not think of anything when I know they exist?
Oh dear, I think we're showing ourselves up, so let's just move away from the topic.
We'll move away from it from now, but watch me like yell out a random game name in the middle of the like podcast because I've remembered something.
if we can figure out some answers, we'll come back to it. But in the meantime, I think obviously one of the bigger aspects of Undertale is the soundtrack.
Oh, so good! I still listen to it now.
Like, yeah, like just basically go from there. Like because like it does feel like it's one of the bigger aspects of Undertale. Like, I think they even just had a streamed orchestra show as well.
Yes, I watched it with friends, and we went through all the feelings just watching that, and I was like, oh my god, I love this so much. Sorry, this is clearly just an entire podcast of me gushing.
That's fine. Gushing's fine. But yeah, like, talk to me a bit more about that soundtrack then, because like, yeah, it is just such an iconic aspect of the game. Anyway, I know that much, even though I've not played it.
Yeah, I think part of the reason it's so iconic is that the songs, one, are amazing. They are so good. Like, it's like some battles, like I've seen streamers get stuck on a battle for like 8 hours. And they still aren't sick of the song. Like, it just, the loop and like it just doesn't get on your nerves, yet it's still catchy enough that you're like bopping to it. And it has so many different moods, right? It has like the kind of like more mellow chill moments, the really silly songs, the like actual boss battle music, which motivates you and fills you with determination. And the fact that these soundtracks are so attached, I think because the characters are so, you connect with them so much, or like the moments you have in the game feel so visceral. It's like the music that's attached with it, when you hear it like in an orchestra, you get all the same feelings you had like when you were battling like a boss, when you were going on a date with Papyrus, or when you were just like trying to get this dog to go to college. Like it has like songs that just are specifically attached to those moments, and it makes you feel all the feels again. And I think that's why it connects with people so much and has created such a huge following for the soundtrack, which is sometimes quite rare for games, which is sad. I think soundtracks add a lot to games that people don't realize.
You mentioned how people like there have been people who've gone through boss fights and like not being able to beat them for about 8 hours, but have that musical loop. How do people put up with that? Like, what is it about Undertale's sort of charm that my bully dog? What is it about that sort of charm that sort of makes people put up with it for about 8 hours, basically?
I mean, this streamer was particularly stubborn, so who knows if anyone else would have gone through it. But it is known to be the hardest boss battle. But I mean, like, how does anyone feel like they want to go through? It's like, why does anyone play Dark Souls? Not, if they don't like hard boss battles. But that being said, I think because like the reason someone goes through this and maybe suffers through 8 hours of trying to beat this one boss is the combination of, like, you know, the soundtrack, and I'm sure all the different elements, the past gameplay you've had before, and the story you know and want to continue and see what happens. Like, all of that, like, drives you to want to beat this one boss, because he's like, he's a boss that starts off as a friend and continues to be a friend, honestly. It's just like he's trying to stop you from literally murdering everyone in the game. So he's the good guy, he's the hero, and you are completely the villain. So it's the history you have with him and the way he, like, talks, and he's like, oh, I believe in you, like, you can do this, and then he's like, get dunked on when he kills you after you were like, you know what, you're right. He's like, no, you're a terrible person, I'm killing you. And honestly, the game is all about the running theme in the game is determination. It's like anytime like something happens, like it fills you with determination. You're determined to get through this, and I think this boss battle is kind of just a culmination of that. It's like you have to stay determined if you want to do this, and you're a terrible person if you are, but you know, whatever. So I think that's kind of it. It's like it's so cohesive with the game and the narrative it's telling you that it's like if you are a character that's filled with determination, and determination is what gets you through anything in this world and in life, honestly. So this boss battle is sort of is determination epitomized in the game.
It's sort of why people go through that 8-hour loop.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think everyone went through the 8-hour.
Okay, true,
I mean,
but like
yes.
it's what would make one people play through an 8-hour loop, basically.
Yes, for sure.
I guess with Undertale, then, like, it's sort of built up the rise, in a way, I guess, of Toby Fox, because now he's basically this sort of one-man band who's done everything within the game, like game design, narrative, story, music. Like, very few people can do that, basically, and yet he's able to do it.
I know, it's wild. And I think he had some help with a few of the songs and some of the art, but otherwise, yeah, I think it was basically him.
Like, that's just basically nuts to me, like how, well, besides the odd help he got, like how he managed to basically make this entirely successful, popular game that is now 5 years later from its release, like, so beloved. And like, if you this is purely hypothetical here, but like, if you were able to make a game like that over so many facets, like, how would you be able to do something like that? Like, I'm just sort of thinking aloud here in a very stupid way, but I'm just sort of morbidly, well, not morbidly, but like, I'm just sort of curious about how someone could do that, basically. It's sort of somewhat fascinating to me in a way.
Yeah, I don't know. Did he make it in Game Maker?
He did. It says Game Maker.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, there's so many. I think the thing is, it's like he has been, let's say, making games since, I don't know actually how old he was, but like, you know, he made the Earthbound Mother mods or whatever. Yeah. And I assume like he's been making things on Game Maker for a while. So it's one of those things where it's like, it seems like it just came out of nowhere, but it's definitely like a culmination of years and years of work and tinkering around with Game Maker. And maybe he always had this idea in mind, right? Like, it sort of draws from that same mod that he made. I don't even know if it's a mod. Anyways, and I think that's the thing with a lot of solo devs, game developers in general. It's like, it's so many, and actually all work in general. It's like it's years of working on something and just slowly getting to this point where now it's like, oh, now everyone noticed what I'm doing because it's huge, but they didn't see like the like tens and thousands of other projects I've worked on or failed in, let's say, or the hours of experience or hours of work I put into Game Maker. So yeah, but it is still like amazing and fascinating, and also takes, you know, a lot of money and time, and who knows, side tinkering, right?
That's true. That's admittedly very true. What else do you like about Undertale that we've not talked about?
Music, the characters, the story, the battles. I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, clearly from the way I've been talking, so much of it lies in the narrative. And I think I talked a lot about the humor, but I think there is... I don't know if it was because I just saw Undertale in a time when I needed it a lot, which was like the end of university, and I had no idea what I was doing, and it felt like I was very lost as well. But it does have very hopeful messages that I think a lot of people resonate with. I saw like several streamers like sobbing when the game came out, like near the ending, just because it is very encouraging and it is very hopeful, which is again quite rare for a game to actually instill like those, like, you know, games that can make you cry or hopeful or whatever. I think that's much harder to do than a game that makes you angry. So yeah, I think there's a certain element of hope to it that is very, very nice.
Like you mentioned that it came out at a certain time when you were sort of confused about what you were doing, what was next for you, like that sort of personal connection to it, like finding those certain personal connections to it, the certain personal times in your life, that sort of resonates a lot with me, and I think because of that, the games really resonate a lot more as a result. I think that's sort of why, well, it's really why The Last of Us is my favorite game. It's why Metal Gear Solid 3 is right behind it, especially Metal Gear Solid 3, and also as well to a lesser extent why The Last Guardian is in my top 5 games ever. And the reason I say The Last Guardian is in retrospect, not just because it is such a brilliant game, faults and all, but because I was going through like the worst year of my life, and even even in 2020 now, I'll still say that's the worst year of my life.
Yeah.
Like, you must be doing something wrong if 2020 is not the worst year of your life.
Oh no.
And yet 2060 did it. And I think that's sort of why Last Guardian really resonated with me as my favorite game that year and in my top 5 games of all time, because it resonated with me during a really difficult period that entire year. So I guess this is sort of a roundabout way to ask, or even just point out, that games mean a lot, obviously, and they can mean a lot in many different ways, but the fact that they can they find something during, you know, these certain life moments and really resonate a lot more as a result, that's very powerful. It's very strong.
It is, and I think that's kind of like the beauty of games. It's like if you find the right one at the right time, like it kind of just, it stays with you. Like it's like a companion to you, like your entire life.
In that case, then I can see why there's a sort of Trico statue next to me.
Aww.
Good bird cat. Trusted bird cat. What about Undertale did you not like?
I didn't like how it made me feel things. Made me feel so many things. Made me feel like a terrible person. No big deal. Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm one of those people. This is why I would be a terrible game critic, by the way. It's very hard for me to actually, like, find a lot of flaws in a game. I'm just like, oh, I mean, like, if it didn't suit me, it might suit someone else, so it's not a really big deal. And I know, like, I've seen a lot of, like, smart people, like, do, like, video essays about Undertale and say this and this, but to me it's just like, I think, again, because we just talked about, like, it came at the right place at the right time, that it's really hard for me to not to have really solid criticisms of it, I guess, because it just felt because it meant so much to me. Like, sure, like, I could be like, oh, I wish the art style were like this or whatever, but it's one of the, I think it brings a certain charm to it, and I'm not necessarily someone who, like, needs perfect art to enjoy a game anyway, so, yeah, I honestly can't say much.
I guess it's because it did come along at that right time. There is a sort of, not necessarily biased view of it, although you could probably argue that as well. Yeah. But because it came along at that right time, you sort of have blinders on, in a way.
Yeah, for sure, and I can acknowledge that, right? It's like, I definitely have blinders on. And it's been, honestly, like, part of this is that it's been years since I've played the game. Right, like, I don't remember. I'm sure I had, like, some annoyances with, like, maybe how the battle system worked, or, like, maybe certain parts of it felt laggy, but, like, you don't remember those parts. You remember the parts that connected with you and that were really good. So I'm like, I can't recall after years of not playing. It's been, like, what, 5 years now? I don't remember since the game's come out.
Yeah, more or less 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like, I honestly can't recall.
So, what about Deltarune then? Because that's coming. First chapter's already out for like nearly 2 years now. It has 2-3 years? I can't remember at this point in time. It's basically
it's been a while.
A non-existent concept. Like, have you played that yet?
No, I'm trying. I'm someone who's like, I need to play the entire thing in one
That's
sitting.
fair. That's fair.
I can't. Yeah, but I have heard Deltarune is good, very good. So my hopes are high.
That's fair, because I do have that first chapter, I think, like, downloaded on my Switch, or at least I got it on the Switch. But I am more or less like you at this point. I'm just going to wait for the full game at this point. Maybe by the time Deltarune comes out in full, I'll have played Undertale, or I'll wait until closer to Deltarune comes out and play Undertale.
Just have a whole thing, yes.
Yeah. and then play Deltarune entirely in full. So that might be the way I'll go with it.
Yes.
Honorable mentions. Go for it.
The Sims.
Fair enough.
I think The Sims was a great game that sort of made, like, no matter if you're, like, a quotation mark gamer or not, I think games that can get other people playing it who don't consider themselves gamers is a good thing, because, you know, you want to have a big pool of people buying and playing games. And The Sims was just a fun way of showing like, oh, you don't need these like bombastic fantasy worlds. You can literally just live out a life and it would be amazing and great. Of course, Breath of the Wild.
Naturally.
Everyone talks about Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I am talking about Zelda Breath of the Wild. God, just it made exploring so fun. So fun.
And I think as well, like Breath of the Wild, because like before Breath of the Wild, I think I only played something like a combined 10 hours of the likes of Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, and maybe Twilight Princess. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Breath of the Wild, I think I played about 50, maybe 60 hours of that game, and I was completely enamored in it because of that sense of exploration it gives you that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And just discovering. Like, it legitimately felt like... It didn't feel like a game design... Like, game developers, like, put something there. It felt like you figured it out. You're like, oh my goodness, like, this wasn't here. I found this out. You know? It's just like... Oh, God. And, like, the fact that you could look into the horizon and see, like, little points of interest and be like, what's that? What's that? And I saw someone compare it to how Disney World actually, or Disney designs their theme parks, of, like, putting little points of interest in, like, the horizon where it makes you feel like you're like, ooh, what is that? Like, I want to explore there and go there. That's the exact same thing Zelda did with Breath of the Wild. And I was like, whoa! Fascinating architecture. Yes, so, Breath of the Wild. Is it cheating if I mention even more Zelda games? I feel
No, go for it.
So, I really love Zelda the Minish Cap, even though it was a short game. It has that nostalgia factor to me. Oh, and Zelda Oracle of Seasons. Obviously, like, lot of nostalgia being played here.
It harkens back to the start of the episode where you basically mentioned how you got into Zelda.
Yes. Clearly, I'm a big Zelda fan, which is I don't know. This one is cheating because it's just honestly nostalgia going in. I don't even think the stories are that good. I mean, Oracle Season story is good. Minish Cap story is like okay. It's just I don't know. I guess it's the sense like Zelda has continually made me feel like I'm on an adventure, and. It always goes on my favorite games list, for sure. What else is there? Oh, I think Papers, Please was a really interesting indie game that was super, like, clever and profound and had, like, made a lot of impact with, like, a very, like, basic system, I suppose. And it's, like, a statement.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree with that. Papers, Please. It's very basic at its most facing levels, but like you say, it does send a message, a very political message at that. It's such a phenomenal game.
It is.
It
really is.
It really is, and like I've still yet to play Overdone as well. I really need to play that because of Papers, Please.
Ooh, yeah. Overdone was interesting. What a, like, fascinating system. Yeah.
That feels like I need to play that. Have you got any more?
I really like A Short Hike, and I think part of the reasons I feel like A Short Hike kind of embodies the fact that we're sort of I think wholesome games are, like, becoming more and more prevalent.
I agree. I'm very happy.
Yeah,
so
exactly, and I'm also very excited for that. And I think A Short Hike is one of the best embodiments of that. Of like, it's sort of the not antithesis, but it's a short game. It is all about just gliding and having a chill time. And it's like very different from like, you know, like a lot of people like demanding like I need to play this game for 300 hours. It needs to be infinitely replayable. It needs to like have like 4K graphics and all this. And A Short Hike's like, just have a chill time, like just hanging around. I'm like, yes, that's what I want. So yeah,
I really need to play A Short Hike. I really do, because I got it as part of the Black Lives Matter bundle.
Oh yeah. It's lovely, and it's a short experience. So, and as someone who doesn't have a lot of time anymore, it's like I need games that are really short now. I can barely like sink in like a ton of hours into any game at this rate. So having short games is really nice.
Time is nothing but a concept, a mystery anymore.
Is.
Especially in 2020, especially in COVID era. But like, I really need to play a short hike because obviously I did get it with the BLM bundle, but also because I have a friend who has basically gone to bat for a short hike a lot, and I seen them stream it actually last year, I think it was. So I need to play it. I really need to play it. It's
Definitely
such my jam as well. It's such my jam. I really need to play it. So top 3 games ever. What would they be? Undertale at the top, obviously, but how would you fill out that top 3?
Oh no. Okay. Undertale, Breath of the Wild, Sims.
Oh, okay.
I think. Oh, I feel like watch me get like canceled by gamers because I forgot like, a game that they're like, this is my favorite game. Why is it in your top 3? I'm like, I don't know. Sorry, I forgot.
I'm sort of fascinated by that because I thought I figured considered you'd put one ahead of the other. I thought it would be The Sims and then Breath of the Wild.
I actually don't know. It's hard. It's so hard. I don't know. Maybe it is The Sims and then Breath of the Wild.
They're interchangeable anyway.
They are.
But those would be your top 3 at a basic level at least.
Yes. So if you want to find me on the internets, you can find me on Twitter at the VTran, TheVTran. I will also, by the time this comes out, be at Innersloth, which you can find at Innersloth Devs on Twitter. And and there's also my TikTok if you're interested. I am one of those people, and I do a lot of TikToks about game development. Sometimes I'm a little bit salty, sometimes a little bit sassy. It's fine. That's also at the VTran. And I'll see you around the internet.
As someone who has just basically gotten into TikTok over this past year thanks to COVID, definitely give her a follow. She's amazing at TikTok.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to My Favorite Game, a podcast by Play Diaries where people in the games industry come on to talk of their favorite game. If you want to listen to future episodes of My Favorite Game or press play before they go live publicly, please consider subscribing to our $2 tier on Patreon at patreon.com/playdiaries. Next week, the second part of our Undertale arc with Kitty Crawford. Until next week, bye bye.